Right, next up, we have Gina Gotthilf, ex-VP of Duolingo, and currently in stealth with a new edtech startup. So she is back in the game. I'm really excited to see what she has in store when she launches this new product that she's working on. But she has some incredible experience. She's going to be sharing experience from working on the Mike Bloomberg campaign from her time at Duolingo. And she's just been around the industry and has a ton of incredible insights. And the main thing she's going to be talking about, the title of her talk is, they click my ad, now what? And I think it's one of those things that's kind of underappreciated in the app industry. So there's so much talk about creative, but what happens after they see that creative and how can you tie that in? And then what's cool is we got a lot of new industry stuff. I don't think she's going to go into a lot of detail about this in her talk, but things like custom App Store product pages where you can now, in App Store search ads, link to a specific product page from a specific keyword. Like, we're getting more and more tools to customize this entire user journey from somebody seeing your ad to then onboarding and activating within your app. So she's not going to get into a lot of detail about those specific things, but everything that she's talking about applies to that whole customer journey from seeing an ad to becoming a loyal subscriber. So without further ado, Gina.
Hi. So David was like, what should you talk about? And we decided that I should talk about what happens after someone clicks an ad, which is literally everything. So there's just not enough time to go over everything that could possibly happen. But I am excited to give this talk, and I'll explain to you, and it has to do with the Mike Bloomberg presidential campaign. Somehow, 3 different presidents made their ways into this presentation, and it's not political. I don't know how that happened, but you'll see. So just a quick intro. I led, few people know this, I think. I led growth at Tumblr in Latin America. If you remember Tumblr, you are just as old as me. And then I went to Duolingo, and I was there from 3 to 200 million users as their head of growth and marketing. I worked on the Mike Bloomberg presidential campaign, and then more recently founded a VC firm, investing in early stage startups in Latin America. And then I quit, and now I'm building a new edtech with the former head of product at Duolingo that I'm super excited about. But this is not about that. So the Mike Bloomberg presidential campaign was an amazing campaign for so many reasons, but one of them is that we were spending like $1 million to more than $1 million a day. And I had only worked with organic marketing my whole life. I'd only worked with no budget. Both Tumblr and Duolingo were like, help us grow everywhere with $0. Got us by, And then Mike Bloomberg, completely different situation. But what really shocked me about this is that they had an incredible ad strategy team. Most of the strategy was around figuring out how to put Trump down and just get people to hate Trump more, which is not that hard to do. That's a joke. I'm not going to make this partisan at all. So a lot of people were thinking about what the creatives are going to be and what's the copy and how are we doing targeting. There were so many cooks in that kitchen. And I felt like I didn't have that much to add because I didn't have that much knowledge about paid marketing. And there's too many really smart people doing this already. So then what happens when people click on the ad? They land somewhere, right? No one was really thinking about that much. Of course, there were landing pages, but there wasn't the same team thinking about what is this landing page going to be like. But the truth is that every single click counts. And if someone clicks on your ad and they land on a landing page and then they drop off, that was worth nothing. And if you can double the amount of people who click on that second page, your ad campaign just doubled in value. So it's really, really, really valuable. And so this is what I set out to do. And I kind of, went by myself and decided to start this. So please, if you have designers in the room, don't look too much at the design because I had to design this and I had to write the copy. I did not design the one on the left. I designed the one on the right. But I spent one day basically figuring out okay, what can I do to make this convert more? Meaning more people who land here are going to actually input their emails and then click submit so that we can have their information forever. And so I started tweaking with things. And the thing is, because we had such an incredible spend, it meant that we could get to statistical significance multiple times a day with experiments, which I had never experienced either. Because at Duolingo, we would launch a new experience, And then we had experiment, and then we would have to wait 2 weeks to find out if it's going to work. And that's actually a really kind of fast cadence. But in this case, it was like 2 or 3 times a day because we were sending so many people to this landing page that I could get the kinds of numbers I needed to know. So it was really fun. And this one day, I was able to increase a landing page conversion rate from 3% to 11%, just by kind of tweaking things around. And I'm not a landing page expert, but I just kind of use things that were intuitive, and this is why I think it's worth really paying attention to. This presentation will also get a little bit into things that go beyond the landing page, so onboarding, retention, monetization, very lightly, but like I said, we can't go deep into everything. The one thing I really want to drill down, which is obvious and so easy to forget, is that every single click matters. Like if there are marketers in the room, maybe everyone's a marketer, we've seen that funnel a million times. To me, like every app or web experience every click is a step in that funnel, and the number of people you lose every click is astounding. So like we have to pay attention, especially in the beginning, to the first few clicks. At Duolingo, I had a boot camp in this. So this is the old Duo. Like this is how he looked a long time ago, probably 2013. And Duolingo A/B tested everything. So literally, and this predates me, I don't want to take credit for it, we tested the number of tears that Duo cries and the size of the puddle when you fail. And like the idea, someone here was talking about the psychological, emotional component of everything. People are people, and so you have an emotional reaction. Oh my God, I failed. I didn't do this class, and now I wasn't able to get to the next lesson, and now Duo's miserable. And sometimes Duo's too miserable, and you're like, dude, like get a therapist or something, like it's not my problem. Or sometimes he's not miserable enough, and you're like, he's fine, I can go do the next thing. But this is just the right amount of miserable. And we tested everything. And that's actually one of the cool things about Duolingo that we're not going to get into this talk. But one of the really innovative things that was done early on is that they figured out that they had hundreds, thousands, eventually millions of data points to understand how people actually learn. And that had never been done in history before. So you could actually say, like, hey, should we teach plurals or adjectives first? And now we could actually look at data and be like, well, if people learn this before this, they're more likely to retain information. And then you can get to statistical significance. So we A/B tested absolutely everything. So this was drilled into my head, such that by the time I got to the Mike Bloomberg campaign, I'm like, what about the next click? What's happening? Now I'm going to take a step back. This talk is about what happens after they clicked on my ad, and I'm talking about landing pages. I studied philosophy in college. I'm not a marketer by study. I'm like street marketer vibes. So I kind of loosely define things. Like for me, growth is a very loose word. Ad for me is a very loose word, and landing page too. And I want to challenge everyone here, or instigate, whatever the word is, invite to think of an ad as something a lot more broad than just like the thing you see on Facebook or on Google or on Instagram or whatever, TikTok. An ad is anything that leads you to that takes someone from outside of the world of your product into the world of your product. So in the early days of Duolingo, one of the, what mostly worked for growth, and that was me, 2013, 14, was PR. And it's not sexy, but it is what it is. But what they told me was, unless this actually drives DAUs, actually brings users that stick around to our app, it doesn't matter. I don't care if you get a New York Times cover page. If you don't get us users, this is worthless to us. And so I really had to think about, what does that mean? What's the kind of story that I want to place in a newspaper or a magazine or a blog that will actually get the user to come and to stick around? And so that changes the way that you think about it. I think I have plenty of time so I can talk a little bit about this, but this is, on the left, you'll see the mixed panel, literally mixed panel screenshot for the launch in Brazil, and then there's a launch in Turkey. So you can see how there's a launch, and then there's kind of growing, and then the WWW is a conference that Luis Fanon came to speak at. It was a nerdy developer conference, and we used that to get a lot of journalists to write about Duolingo, and then you can see that that spiked. And even though that dropped right after the conference, it dropped to a level significantly higher, and then we did it again with this other conference, and again. And so that became the playbook for Duolingo in the early days. Go to a country, figure out how to get journalists to want to talk to Luis, who wasn't that relevant yet. He had already created the CAPTCHA, so I had that going for me. But Duolingo was this game that it's languages, no one cared. So how do we make people care? And very loosely speaking, it had to do with getting him to speak at a top university and at a top conference around the same time, and then telling journalists that he was super important and had been invited by Harvard, even if it was like to speak at one random class, and then getting them to feel like they need to interview him now in like sense of urgency. If anyone's curious about PR, talk to me later. An email is also an ad. So this is a campaign that we did in 2016. We knew that at the end of the year is when people make resolutions for themselves. And that's when we really had to get them, because that was the moment when they were going to be like, oh, next year I'm really going to learn Spanish. And we wanted to be one of those top 1, 2, 3 resolutions. And so we made a campaign around figuring out how to get as many app installs around that time as possible. And so I actually, with this particular email, I actually A/B tested this. I wanted to A/B test this 80 different versions of the email. And Natalie Glantz, who was still the head of engineering at Duolingo, came to me and sat me down and was like, let me explain statistical significance to you. You can't A/B test 80 things. It just doesn't work. And I had to figure out, you have to test less things. But the point is, you have to think of every one of those opportunities. You're trying to get either a new user or re-engage a user. Where do they land from that? And that's just as important. Now, let's go into landing pages. I like this quote, which is, you will never get a second chance to make a good first impression. It's true in general, but especially with landing pages, because if people didn't like you, they're literally going to leave and you'll never see them again. That was your only opportunity to get them through any sort of door. So how did I do this thing with the Mike Bloomberg, with the Mike Bloomberg presidential campaign? I'll just walk through a couple of things. One, mobile. It's really easy to underestimate mobile even today, because we think well, people do things at work, they're still on their computer. And so even if we had this responsive thing, so I could see what it looked like on mobile, it wasn't great for mobile. I'll show the next slide some stats, but just the number of people who reach things through mobile is just crazy. So you got to be thinking about that. And that was not that long ago. 2, assume laziness. That, to me, applies to everything in marketing. People want to be sophisticated, and they want to write cool things, and they want to give context, and they want to do more. Less is more. People are lazy. They're going to skim your page. I'm sorry if there are journalists in the room. That is true. And so keeping things super, super simple, and then taking it a step further. For example, if you look at the, I guess, call to action on the right with the black image, it's important for, if you're going to have a call to action, you have to have one. Don't try to have more than one call to action. It's too much for our little brains. And 2, the headline needs to connect directly with what the button says. I know that sounds silly, but just assume nothing else is going to get read. So this is too small for me to read right now, but it was the left one is Trump is putting American lives in jeopardy. And then the call to action is support now. So you're what, supporting putting lives in jeopardy? On the right, it's the coronavirus. This is funny, the coronavirus. We were still calling it that. This was before COVID hit New York. And then it hit right after, and half the people in that campaign got COVID. I left. So anyways, the coronavirus is here. We need to treat it like a real crisis. And then sign petition. That's direct. You didn't have to read anything else. It's also black and menacing. And then Trump looks extra menacing and silly. So that's the emotional psychological manipulation aspect of it, which falls into everything, but especially in marketing. Just think about how your page is going to make people feel. If you want to, not call it emotional manipulation, that's okay too. I just trying to call it what I think it is. Mobile, we all know this, but mobile gets 5x more visitors according to unbounce.com. Desktop does bring better conversion. So if people are on desktop, they're slightly more likely to convert, but still 5x more. It doesn't matter, So make the effort of seeing how a landing page looks on your mobile device, making sure that you don't actually have to scroll to get to things, that kind of thing. With regards to copy, I'm bringing, again, presidential campaigns in because I think it's kind of funny. So I have always been a Democrat my whole life. Right now, I don't know what I am. I'm a little confused. I'm Jewish. Anyways, so we Democrats like to be very proud about how smart we are. And we're just so much more intelligent than everybody else, especially those Republicans. I'm speaking as a kind of Democrat. I don't know what I am. And so we like to say things well, our presidential candidate was speaking at a 9th grade level versus Trump speaks at a 5th grade level. That's ridiculous. It's the worst level of English ever spoken. But the funny thing is that speaking in 5th grade English is actually great. And it's still great for you guys, for all of us. Think about how to keep language super simple so that everyone can understand without trying too hard. And if you look on the right, you can see the median conversion rate, and like I think as Phil might have mentioned, like these metrics might vary based on different things, but basically the median conversion rate for 5th to 7th grade reading grade level is 11%. And the next one is 8th to 9th, that's already 7%, and then it just drops down from there. We're not talking about people who are dumb and they support Trump or whatever. We're talking about everyone. Like, people like simple things. And so the more complexity you add into your copy, the more likely you are to lose a potential customer. If you want other best practices for landing pages, I suggest you ask ChatGPT. It's really amazing. I was asking it and it knew way more than me. So highly recommend if you want to go and see what else you could do to increase your chances of converting. I'll go back to Duolingo. So one thing that we also did was that we started looking at where people landed after they looked for things on Google. So for example, people search for, I want to learn Spanish or whatever. They would land on this page that's on the left, the Learn Esperanto from English, like pretend it's Spanish for a sec. This was the landing page for our Spanish course. We didn't think of it as like, this is the door to the Spanish course. We just thought like, this is a page about the Spanish course that we have on our website. But when people clicked on that link, that's where they would land. And so we started thinking, maybe this is not the best page to convert because it talks about the course and why Spanish is important and whatever. So we redesigned the whole thing to make it super simple, call to action, value prop, way up there, learn Spanish in just 5 minutes a day for free, start learning. Assume no one's going to read anything else. And we were able to increase the conversion rate on that page by 10%, which when you have millions of users makes a really big difference. The Duolingo, this blew my mind. The Duolingo landing page I was researching for this talk, I was just curious to see, like, okay, they must have A/B tested so much since I left, literally like many years ago. I'm not going to even tell you guys. But it's the same. The page is the same. So this is like on 2016, this is what we had, the free, fun, and effective way to learn a language. 2024, this is what they have now. It's still the free, fun, and effective way to learn a language. The buttons are the same. The order of the languages are the same. Like, it really shocked me. But it means that like we really just maximized the output of that, and there was not much more juice to be gained. And they know that, and so there has not been a reason to change it very much. Your App Store landing page really matters. David was just saying that there's like a lot more sophisticated things you can do today that I am outdated and will have to figure out for my new company. But like the point is, think about that as a landing page. When people click on an ad or they click on a story or social media, whatever, and they open the App Store, and they're either going to look for you or they looked for something like you, and then they found you as an option, what are the things that are going to make them actually then convert? Because otherwise, all of this is meaningless. And there are things that have high ROI. There are things that have low ROI. You'll have to figure out, or ask ChatGPT. He probably knows, or she, whatever they are. In this case, we realized that optimizing for the screenshots, changing some of the headlines really had outsized returns. I recommend looking at App Annie, Sensor Tower. Those are some tools in case you're curious about optimizations there. Okay, cool. So they downloaded your app. Congratulations, that's amazing. But then if you forget the next steps, you basically just threw money and time down the drain. So we won't be able to get super in-depth because this is a short talk, but onboarding. So you just got these amazing users. How do you keep them? With Duolingo, the simplification concept that applies to basically like the visual hierarchy and the language used on a landing page, same thing, just simplify, assume laziness. So this was on the left, we had the original onboarding screen, which said you pick what you want to learn, your full name, your email, username, password. If you asked anyone on the team at the time, they would all say, we need this information. Like, we absolutely need to know everyone's email, username, password, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is the bare minimum. And so we decided to think, well, what if we make it even more minimum? Just maybe we don't need to know what language they're going to learn, which sounds crazy. And now Duolingo has reintroduced, but it's because it's a really well-known app. So we just asked for name, email address, password, 3 different screens because people see multiple lines to fill out and they're like, ugh, maybe later. And then also putting the number at the top, 1 out of 3, 2 out of 3, 3 out of 3, which I now realize is out of order. That's also a way to make people feel like, oh, there's not that much left work to do. I'm going to get there, and it helps. Optimizing for signups. So actually, Phil and I were talking about this just yesterday, which is when people download your app, they're probably most likely to sign up or do anything you ask them to do because they're most excited. They're like, oh my God, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to work out, I'm going to learn a language, I'm going to do all these things. So now is the time to ask for things. And I'm sure you've heard this before, and it is true in some cases. But with Duolingo, we found actually that it was much more effective to let people try out Duolingo first. So we had this thing on the left, the screen on the left, which we call the hard wall. And basically, after you finish the lesson on Duolingo, it said, save your progress. You need a Duolingo profile to save your progress. And then the options were discard my progress or create a profile. And we started thinking, like, what if people are clicking on discard my profile because it's a red button? Because again, assume laziness. Like people just go, red button, you know? Maybe let's try out what happens if we take out that color. And then also, what if we tell people, okay, you have to create a profile, but not now. You can do it later. And we prime them a few times so they get really used and comfortable to the idea that they're going to have to create a profile. And that actually ended up working really well. So we found something like 2 or 3 like primes, soft walls before we're like, now you have to create a profile. Like, come on, you know? So that made a big difference. We were able to increase Android signups by 10%. This experiment is interesting to me because as I was preparing for this talk, I realized that this principle applies to some newer things that Duolingo has done too, and I'll bring that at the end of the presentation. Retention. Oh my gosh, you made amazing ads. You were able to optimize a landing page. People actually downloaded it. They signed up. If you don't get them to come back, it was all for nothing. And I know that none of us can do all of these jobs. There are different people in an organization that need to do all these jobs, but anyone who was thinking about ads and conversions and is already thinking about what kinds of users are more likely to then be retained or to figure out like how to not lose people down the funnel is probably going to get promoted at some point. So with regards to onboarding and how it leads to retention, that's a really important thing. We're just talking about how to get people to sign up. This is also the time when you get to prime your users to think, ooh, I would like to come back to this again and make your life a little easier. So Duolingo is very known for its streaks, but what is not that well known, I think, is that it's not just that Duolingo had streaks, it's that it made people pick a goal for what they, and I think it's still the case, you pick a goal for what you want to learn. And so what Duolingo does in that moment is like, oh, welcome. How much do you want to learn? How much are you willing to commit? And the person goes, okay, this much. Now I have an amazing excuse to send you notifications. Because my notifications aren't just being like, use Duolingo. It's like, hey, didn't you say you wanted to learn French? It's time to learn French. 10 minutes a day. And that all wraps up into the whole idea of having this owl that's a coach, and it talks to you. And so it's not just the streak, but it's being able to wrap that around in an experience. Other things we found in the onboarding was that it was most effective to send notifications 23.5 hours after someone signs up, because that was the time in the day when they were probably idle and using their phone. And so maybe tomorrow, that's going to be a good time for them to use their phone again. And so now why not 24 hours? Because it gives them like the 30 minutes to see the notification and actually do it. And it helped us not have to deal with like different countries and different routines. It's just like whatever time was good for you yesterday might be good for you today. This was one of the earliest growth experiments at Duolingo. It was just me and an engineer in the team, and we made this. And it was basically like that really annoying badge that people want to click to like, you want to get rid of the red thing on your phone. You're like, oh, unfinished. And that really helped. Notifications is something that we worked on also a lot. And the funny thing is that the CEO said to me, don't work on notifications, we've already optimized them. And I was like, okay, but like you didn't give us a designer, man, so it's just me and an engineer, and what am I gonna do? Like we made the badge thing already, so I know how to copyright. So I was like, we're just gonna do more notifications, because like this is what we can do. And it worked beautifully. I don't take credit for the passive-aggressive notification. It was there before I joined, but we iterated with it. And this kind of language, I'm sure if you use Duolingo today or used it recently, you can recognize how like the kind of like mean owl starts to take shape very early. Like it's just a little bit passive-aggressive. Now I would say that he's aggressive-aggressive. I don't take credit for that either. So think about notifications, because that's how to reach people at the top of the funnel. Like it's a great way to reach people before they're too much in the app. In our team, we had a lot of people who were like, no, like when you finish Spanish, it's such a lame experience. Like you get like a congrats. We need to make this an amazing experience, and I'm sure it's going to have a huge impact on growth. But then you look at how many people got to the end of the course. It's a much smaller number than the number of people who got a notification. And if they got to the end of the course, like they're probably already engaged. And what are they going to do now? Like learn Spanish again or learn French? Like maybe they're just going to Spain, you know, like leave them alone. Emails, and in this case, it's a cool thing. It's like we did a lot of email kind of things, but I want to point out gamification-y things, which I'll give more examples of, but we figured out like people love to complete progress bars, and you see that in games all the time. So let's just give them an artificial progress bar in an email and tell them, you're almost there, you're almost at the next random level that we assigned for you, and show them an email of that, and that helped with conversions too. And then when you lose your streak, you're likely to never come back again. Because if you've done Duolingo, like one of your biggest motivations to learn a language is not to learn a language, is just to not lose your streak. Like I'm in that place right now where I'm like learning, and I don't know if I care that much about learning Hebrew, but I will not miss one day because I'm at 80, and the owl will be really mad. And so we figured out that we were very likely to lose users because we created such a great mechanism that if people lost it, they just give up on Duolingo altogether. So figuring out like, okay, what can we do? And so we created these mechanisms in my team where at first you could repair this streak. And then, anyway, this is a whole other story you can ask me about later. But you can see some variations of this in the app today, but these were things that my team worked on. So 7-day, like how do you get people to a 7-day streak? Make a thing where now they have to do a 7-day streak, and they get a thing, and they get like a badge for it. You know, you start making value where there was no value. And that's gamification. The weekend amulet, the whole badge system, which now seems super obvious. But when we started playing around, so the team would go and like play a game for a whole week and then come back to the next meeting and be like, oh, I saw that this game uses this and this. I think it could work really well with Duolingo. Everyone wanted to do badges because everything has badges and Foursquare. And it took us about we started out with something that wasn't compelling enough because badges are complicated. You have to have many of them, and you have to have a place to like show them, and then they have to have meaning. And anyways, it's complicated. But it ended up being the most successful experiment of the team at the time, and actually like led to random things like 116% more added friends, which is a lot more new users because you would just tell people add friends and get a badge, and now they just wanted the badge. So that worked. The next thing about retention, very quick point, is put yourselves in your users' shoes. It's easy to forget. I myself am guilty of this. So at Duolingo, I didn't really know what dog fooding was. Like I knew of the concept of it. I thought that the word was really weird, but I didn't really know what dog fooding was. Oops, I went to, yep. Until we started realizing that we didn't actually know what the experience for things were like, and we were launching the wrong things. In this case, imagine what it's like to be on a bus doing Duolingo, trying to be productive on the bus, and then it asks you to speak in a foreign language to your phone, like in front of strangers. It's just awkward. And so we started thinking, like, maybe people don't want to do this, and let's give them the option of can't speak now, and that still exists in the app today. So that helped reduce churn. And the final piece of this presentation is, okay, great, you got people to click on the ads, they landed on the landing page, they signed up, they came back the next day, like you're almost there. But then how do we get them to actually pay for something, which at Duolingo was a problem, and Tumblr, because they were both platforms that didn't have a monetization strategy that was super robust. Now it's obvious, we're like, oh yeah, Duolingo's a subscription app, but it wasn't. And in fact, we were against subscriptions, there's a whole thing. But what I talked about earlier is I started noticing how their strategy for getting people who clicked on an ad to then become paying users in many ways related to the soft wall sort of concept that we came across many, many years ago. And so the first thing to know is like Duolingo figured out that being free is a huge reason why people will download and try it, because there's no risk aversion necessary. You're not going to lose anything, just download it. So making people click on an ad and pay for something immediately did not work. But having people start Duolingo, get super engaged by it, and then consider paying was the way to go. If you've been playing Duolingo recently, you'll see that you get prompted many times. There's a lot of subreddits about how annoying it is. But I can see that, like, just don't ask someone to pay once. Like, make sure that you place those asks in multiple moments in the app. And they're super strategic about how you feel when you see those ads. Like, for example, if you lose your streak or if you like didn't complete a lesson because you ran out of time, that's when they're going to be like, are you feeling down and blue? You know what could solve this? You could subscribe. And so a lot of those emotional plugs are there. The second thing is the loss aversion concept, which is the same way as we let people try Duolingo before we made them sign up. Now there's like nudges inside Duolingo that say like, oh, look, you just unlocked Plus. You're in Plus now. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay. And then you experience it. And when they pull it back, you're like, oh, no, I really liked that. Like, that was really good. And I had already done a lot. And now you might consider actually going to pay for it. And then the third one I mentioned, which was like really promoting the free piece. A summary, every click counts. Don't forget about everything after the ad. 2, don't overlook landing pages. Mobile first, assume laziness, keep copy super simple, and use feelings and think about how people are going to feel when they see your landing page. An ad is anything that can bring you potential users. A landing page is wherever your new users land. It doesn't have to be like a thing that's on, like on a web page. Onboarding is your potential new user deciding if they're going to convert. And this is important because I think that when we talk about ads, we talk about, oh, we bought a new user. They clicked on the ad and they converted. No, they didn't. You bought a potential new user. And then they're still figuring out if they want to stick around with you. So that piece is super important. Retention, your users came back. Good job. You actually found someone that wanted to use this. And that's it. Thank you very much.